Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. In today's episode, I want to have a visit to a conflict that I had covered quite a bit a couple of years back, prior to the war that started between the Russian Federation, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and its Ukrainian proxy forces. Now, the conflict that I'm talking about was a rather serious, incredibly high-intensity conflict that took place in the Horn of Africa, East Africa, in the what is essentially a failed state now run by what can only be classified as a dictatorial regime led by Abiy Ahmed. Now, the conflict that I covered was the conflict between the Tigrayan Defense Forces fighting against the loyalist forces of Abiy Ahmed. Now, fast forward today, and I had discussed the fact that in all probability we would see conflicts start to spread inside of what is known as Ethiopia. Now, a few years back, as we recall, the Amhara region was fully supporting Abiy Ahmed. Now, obviously, that has changed quite a bit. And fast forward today, there are thousands upon thousands of Amharan Fano fighters that are now in opposition to the Abiy Ahmed city-state regime located in Addis Ababa, the capital. Now we're continuing to see the positioning of forces. We are continuing to see the stressors of possible open conflict. Right now, we are seeing Abiy loyalist forces start to deploy, start to position themselves for a possible offensive or even a defensive action against the Tigrayan Defense Forces located in the western portions and the central portions of Tigray, this area here. Now, are we likely to see the same type of conflict as prior? The war that took place a few years back before the Pretoria agreements involved large amounts of combat forces on both sides, numbering in the hundreds of thousands, and ultimately we observed hundreds of thousands of casualties. We observed some extraordinary offensive operations by the Tigrayan Defense Forces, which were able to retake the capital of Tigray, Mekelle, and then actually launch a counteroffensive deep into the former state of Ethiopia, even threatening the capital at one point, taking several large cities inside what is Ethiopia. Now, the big problem for the Tigrayan Defense Forces, as I look at this and kind of how things are playing out and how things are being positioned, I would say is not so much a military problem. Abiy Ahmed does have access to quite a bit more technology and obviously air power than what the Tigrayan Defense Forces are able to field, especially drones. Now, with that being said, what is happening on the planet right now in terms of global conflict is different than what things look like at the onset of this conflict. What does that mean? Well, it probably means that Abiy Ahmed may not get the same sort of support he would have otherwise received if we aren't seeing the types of conflicts that are currently taking place around the globe right now. Again, however we position this conflict will be a sidebar to history, right? Sparsely covered, barely even, here in the United States, I would say less than 1% of the American population could tell you where Tigray is, and probably less than 5% could tell you where Ethiopia is in general, much less Eritrea or South Sudan or other nation states such as that. But again, I want to talk about what is the big advantage that Abiy Ahmed has right now. And again, it's not the military equation. The Abiy loyalist forces are a bit disorganized. Their morale tends to be low. They do have some fairly competent units, but on the whole, probably not so much. The Tigrayan Defense Forces, in terms of their generals and the competency of some of their battlefield commanders, have been proven time and time again to be able to outwit and outdeploy and ultimately defeat the Abiy loyalist forces on the battlefield. Now, again, the technology component in terms of drones and some other assets are definitely on the side of Abiy loyalist forces, but that is not the main strength of the Abiy loyalist forces' capability. So what gives Abiy Ahmed this perception of a possible, I don't want to say battlefield advantage, but a geopolitical advantage, right? What is it? Well, one, to some extent, it's capital, it's money. And then at the same time, it's to have the ability to take that capital and money and then use it to bribe whatever individual or individuals that Abiy Ahmed perceives to be susceptible to being bribed and willing to then come over one to his side. Now, why would anyone do that, right? If war is possibly on the verge, what benefit does that give Abiy Ahmed? Well, it gives a very tangible benefit, and that is the prospect of a comfortable life. He is able to go to political opponents, military opponents, and right now at least, he's able to say, hey, either here in Addis Ababa, I can give you a very comfortable life. I can give you money, I can give you safety, I can give you electricity, I can give you stable internet, stable banking system, and the ability to have all the accoutrements that one would see in some first world countries. Or even he's able to say, hey, look, if you leave the country and you disavow yourself from this conflict, I have the ability to set you up in a different country and give you comfort and give you the ability to have a good life, right? Now look, on the surface, that doesn't seem like something that would play into a geopolitical military conflict, the likes of which is taking place in some areas. But in this situation, it does, okay? Because look, life in Tigray under battlefield conditions, when electricity is getting shut off, the internet is getting shut off, there's no access to any sort of reliable banking system. There are some individuals that probably don't want to exist in that realm, the likes of which has been occurring in the Tigray region for quite some time, especially during the war years, right? And ultimately, if you look back at the Pretoria Agreement, if you look what happened with that, again, case example where the supporters of the initial Pretoria Agreement were eventually moved to Addis Ababa, and they were given positions within the Abiy Ahmed regime. And look, let's just face it, that's what it is. I've talked about this before in terms of Abiy Ahmed's thought process of being one of Africa's longest running quote-unquote leaders or dictators, and that's obviously what he is right now. But again, even if looking at the Pretoria Agreements, that's what he was able to offer. And that does come into play in these types of conflict, and especially in this area of the world, right? When you're able to say, hey, look, support me and I will give you this, right? Now look, on the flip side of that, if you look at the Tigrayan Defense Forces, if you look at that kind of capability, if you kind of match it with what Abiy Ahmed is able to offer, again, money and a comfortable life, the TDF is not able to do that, right? You are going to exist in all probability in a somewhat Spartan environment, especially if war breaks out anew. That's just what's going to happen. And if you have children, if you have a wife, obviously you're not just completely looking at yourself, but you're looking at what you can provide for your family. And at a certain point, if maybe you don't see a win out of this, and you in all probability see this lasting for many years in terms of this Spartan existence, then if you're offered that out, right, some people are going to take it. And we are seeing that happen right now. We are seeing, in some cases, individuals are taking that out, being offered by Abiy Ahmed. Hey, right, you don't support me right now, but look, I'm going to give you this, this, and this, and I'm going to give you a nice place to live. I'm going to give you comfort, and that's the way it happens. I mean, you have to face the fact that the quality of life, or in depending on where you live in Addis Ababa, is going to be a higher quality of life than in many other areas of the country. And that's kind of why I call Addis Ababa this Abiy Ahmed city-state. Again, lots of money flows into this quote-unquote city-state, right? Areas of Addis Ababa look monumentally different than other small villages and hamlets scattered around the former state of Ethiopia. Even in the, and it's just not prevalent within the Tigray region, we're also seeing it in the Amhara region, right? Individuals are being offered that out. Hey, okay, here's your money, go to the United States. I've talked to individuals here from the Amhara region that were essentially given that out. They owned large businesses, and they were given the opportunity to take their money, take their funds, and just leave. And that's what they have done. Do they support Abiy Ahmed? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. But they have family members, and they simply want a better life for themselves. If you're able to offer that, you have an advantage. And right now, Abiy Ahmed is definitely using that advantage to his benefit to retain power. And that's what he's doing. Now we'll have to see what happens ultimately with the the military movements that are taking place. Is the war going to start anew between the Tigrayan Defense Forces and the Abiy loyalist forces? Again, difficult to say. There's definitely not going to be the same support that Abiy Ahmed had access to, that he had to essentially bail himself out of the TDF offensive towards Addis Ababa. That might not be present if, in fact, this goes around. And then, obviously, the issue of Eritrea, right? We are probably not going to see the Tigrayan Defense Forces fighting a multi-front war, both to the north and to the south and the west, and to some extent the east and the Afar region, like they did in the previous conflict. Again, a multi-front war against against two fairly powerful adversaries, given the state of the region. This time, in all likelihood, Eritrea may either A, set it out, or B, actively support the Tigrayan Defense Forces. That's difficult to get one's head around, given some of the atrocities that occurred and may not occur at all. But it is a prototypical African conflict, and again, money and the comfort and the accoutrements of life do come into play in this scenario, and that is the one card that Abiy Ahmed has over his political foes and over the Tigrayan Defense Forces. We'll see what happens, and we'll continue to track, and we will continue to cover if things really start to heat up. As always, thanks for joining us. More to come. Have a good day.